Good day everyone and welcome to not daily, not news, just my opinion piece on a game that I've managed to pour a pretty significant amount of time into so far. Scary stuff, honestly, but this video isn't really going to dive into my broader thoughts on the game, as there's a lot of them. Rather, I'll be focusing in on one specific topic: does Civ 7 need a fourth age, and why I think it most certainly does not.
Gondor has no king. Gondor needs no king.
Civ 7 is an interesting Civ game because it's actually 3 Civ games in one, not 7 as the name might suggest. This is because of the highly discussed and now infamous age transition system. Civ has always evolved from game to game, particularly 4 onwards where we made some huge leaps. Square tiles to hexagons, 1 tile per unit rather than insane stacks of doom, and who could forget the greatest feature ever added to a Civilization game, the World Congress in Civ 5. Civ 5 to Civ 6 saw the unpacking of buildings into districts, spreading your empire out beyond the city centre. We saw culture join its scientific brethren with a tech tree of its own, the Civic Tree. We saw the World Congress return, and, well, not every idea can be a winner. Which brings us to Civ 7. We've got possibly some of the biggest shake-ups to the series yet. Leaders and civs are now completely decoupled. No longer will you be getting nuked by Gandhi of India, instead you'll be getting run down by Benjamin Franklin of Mongolia. Units no longer earn XP, and you can hoover them all up into commanders that level up instead. We have meta progression now, just like every other game released in the last 3 years. But of note for this video, we have age transitions. A game of Civ 7 is broken up into 3 ages, right now anyway: Antiquity, Exploration, and Modern, with a little soft reset in between. A major driving force behind these soft resets is to stop players running away with the game, preventing the all too common feeling in 4X games, where early leads snowball into guaranteed wins, where you're left hitting next turn a few hundred times, when in reality the game was all but won, dare I say, ages ago. When I live streamed my last game of Civ 6 for 12 straight hours for my sins, I reckon I'd essentially won the game before that live stream even started. Now, I'm not saying it was impossible to lose, but I started that live stream on turn 373 and finished the game on turn 744. I just kind of realised while writing this, that is 1 turn off being exactly half. It's kind of crazy, but that kind of proves my point. I think anyone with a very basic understanding of the game could have taken over my save from turn 373 and won. But between winning the game and actually seeing the victory screen is almost 12 hours of essentially filler, brain off gameplay. Granted, I was on marathon speed, but you get the idea. So, enter age transitions. Not only do you get to choose a new civ for the new age, ensuring that your civ's abilities are always relevant to your gameplay, but the power levels of all leaders get normalised, pushed back towards the average just a little. Everyone starts fresh on a new tech tree, civic tree, all wars are ceased and all of your units return to your land. Not a bad idea in theory. It does feel a lot jarring at first. It never feels great when a game forces you to lose progress, so going from over 1,000 science back down to 200 with the rest of the plebs can feel a little demoralising at first. But pick your poison, right? If you maintained all of your yields from age to age, we'd be right back to where we started. I've got over 1,000 science and you've got 200. Looks like the game is basically over because you've got no chance of coming back from my massive lead. May as well not bother finishing the game then. Or grit your teeth and next turn it to the victory screen, which, side note, is shockingly bad in Civ 7. No stats, no graphs, no end of game replay, no Dan Quayle score victory, come on. Anyway, I think the age transition system has successfully set out what it intended to do. It still needs a fair bit of tuning, as the player that was ahead in the previous age will still decidedly be in the lead in the next age, so I think the snowball factor is still very much there, but clunky as it may be, it works. I've been entering the modern age and feeling excited to close the game out, refreshing my civ for that last push and the race to victory against my mates. It's fun, and I take my hat off to Firaxis for pulling it off. But to finally address the title of the video, the problem I have is that Civ 7, I think, is trying to position each age as its own little game of Civ. The focus on advanced starts, which have always been a thing, don't get me wrong, but the option to start in an age that's not the very start is no longer kind of tucked away in the game setup among everything else. It's now front and center. It's even made its way into the subheadings of the game setup. The devs clearly wanted to make players more comfortable with, say, starting a game in the exploration age, playing for a few hours, finishing that age, and then calling it a day. And that's fine for the very small subset of people who want to play that way, but let's be clear, that is a very small subset of people. If we look at the Civ 6 Steam achievements, a highly scientific, bulletproof method when it comes to statistical analysis, 36.7% of players got the Test of Time achievement for winning a regular game with an Ancient Era start, but if we go down to the achievements for the other era starts, the second highest achievement here is for a Classical Era start at a whopping 2.2%, 1.7% for Medieval Information, the rest are even less, you get the point. Civ 6 is a game that's been out for over 8 years now, and on average, let's say 2% of players are able to finish a game with an Advanced Era start. At risk of stating the obvious, that means that the starting era that takes by far the longest, the Ancient Era start, was also far and away the most popular. So all this is to say, I seriously just don't think that this is the sect of players we should be trying to appease. Now granted, there are no similar achievements for this in Civ 7, and Firaxis hasn't released any stats covering this, so maybe the faction of people that play this way has absolutely exploded, but I highly doubt it. My issue is, with this mindset, what I would call a standard game of Civ 7, starting in Antiquity, playing through to Victory in the modern age, is, I would say, already pretty time consuming when compared to previous games. Maybe not on a per turn basis per se, but your turns do require a lot more thought now, considering you have to kickstart your empire 3-ish times per game. The only saving grace for the insane duration of the game right now is that the modern age is clipped short to an extreme extent, thanks to the ridiculously easy to achieve victory conditions. Unlike the previous two ages where you have to wait for the age progress to reach 100%, in the modern age you just have to finish one of the legacy paths and then in most cases build a wonder and you're done. This allows you to quite easily finish the game in under 50 turns on standard speed. My current record is turn 41, but I think you could easily go lower. The Culture Victory in particular is especially egregious in this respect, as you essentially unlock everything you need from the very first civic on the tree. That one's getting patched fast, I'll tell you that for free. When we get down to brass tacks, adding in a whole new 4th age means you'll now have to sit through the full modern age timeline as with the previous two ages, and those turns take a long time. Your empire is going to be pretty sprawling by this point, probably hovering around 20 settlements, and you're up to your second round of overbuilding by this point. Now you're telling me I finally get through to the modern age and I have to do it again? Build my empire up for the 4th time this game? I think personally that's just a step too far, and would all but guarantee that this already sort of tenuous age reset mechanic would end up overstaying its welcome with players. As it stands, Firaxis could easily flesh out the modern age to include the later years of history, so pretty much everything after the first crude spaceflight, all the way to futuristic stuff like giant death robots and whatnot. There's no reason, in my opinion, to have a whole new age reset just to include these things. Now they could make it so that going from the modern age to the information age, if that's what they'll call it, won't act like the previous transitions. Perhaps your buildings won't decay, perhaps your units, relationships and city-states could stay as they are, but then I would question why have the 4th age at all. My preferred way to go here is to follow the KISS method, do as we have done before in all previous Civ games and expansions, and flesh out the previous ages, particularly the modern age and their associated victory conditions. Just take a look at the Civ 6 tech tree at launch compared to present day, and it's clear how much work Firaxis put in to make the gameplay denser, not longer. I want to grapple with a wider variety of decisions on each turn. I want more depth, not a bigger puddle. Thinking longer term, I also believe that the amount of overhead a 4th age would create going forward would be immense. I already think that the dev team is stretching themselves a bit thin, being available on just about every console. That's right, even the PS4, which came out in 2013. Ask yourself what your life looked like in 2013, and it's wild that they're still making sure Civ 7 in 2025 can run on that bad boy. But beyond the technical scope, Firaxis essentially has to create 3 new Civs to create 1 new playthrough's worth of content going forward, because just adding 1 Civ to the pool for 1 age isn't exactly going to blow people away. Now imagine that for the rest of the game's development, you essentially need to be adding 4 civs to give players one new Civ 7 playthrough. That seems extremely ambitious. Not to mention, the civs in Civ 7 have a lot going on, far more so than previous Civ games. And with leaders and civs decoupled, they also have to consider all the possible leader combinations when designing new civs, and I feel like pretty quickly the whole system's going to come under some serious strain as it becomes exponentially harder to maintain that house of cards. What I mean is that at launch, Civ 6 had 19 leaders for 18 civs, and by the end had over 58. Considering Civ 7 launched with 20 leaders, we can assume the same sorts of numbers near the end of the game's life. And the problem is, when Civ 6 released that 58th leader, let's say Age of Steam Victoria, they still only had to consider how her abilities would impact exactly one Civ, England. But when Civ 7 releases their 58th leader, they're going to have to consider how that leader's abilities could impact or break the game with all of these civs. All I'm going to say is, good luck. But hey, those are just my thoughts based on various comments from the live streams. I think I'm fighting a losing battle here, and there's a lot of support from the community as well. At this point, it's all but confirmed that a 4th age is on the way, no doubt alongside the first major expansion. And that's all from me. Let me know your thoughts down below. Do you think that Civ 7 needs a 4th age, or should they stick with 3 and just make them better?